Welcome to the Delighted Customers Podcast. I am so glad you're here. We challenge conventional thinking about customer experience because I believe that improving experiences isn't just good for business, it's a powerful way to make a meaningful difference in people's lives. Each week, we feature thought-provoking conversations with industry thought leaders from a variety of backgrounds, offering unique perspectives and actionable insights. Get ready to sharpen your leadership and transform your approach to customer experience. Let's dive in. Well, today on the Delighted Customers Podcast, I have a very special guest coming from up north in Canada. Mike Aoki is a Canadian customer service and sales trainer with over 35 years of frontline and management experience in contact centers. And I was talking to Mike earlier about 150 episodes. To this point, we haven't talked a whole lot specifically about the contact center. And yet, in many ways, it's the pulse of the customer experience in any organization. He's worked with great clients like the Royal Canadian Mint, EQ Bank, utilities, Pitney Bowes, and so forth. He has written in many articles and publications. He's a keynote speaker. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark. I'm glad to be here and glad to help your listeners.
Well, I'm excited to get into our conversation because, and tell me if you agree with this, that in many ways the contact center is arguably the best resource to find out how your customers are experiencing your brand.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that because, again, your contact center is talking to your customers every single day. And in many cases, some of the most upset ones. And so like a focus group where it's sort of an artificial setup or a survey where people answer if they're really super happy or super angry, you actually get a really good real life pulse check from your frontline. Just bear in mind though that pulse check will skew towards people that have to call in because they have an issue. But it does give you a really good background, a lot of competitive intelligence about what's going on out there.
Yeah, because people call in, you and me as consumers call in. I remember being at a CXPA annual event one time. We had Comcast as a keynote speaker. And at the time, they were doing well amongst their peers, and they were doing well. They had 11 years of really good financials as far as Wall Street was concerned, but they were getting hammered on things like NPS and customer satisfaction. So even though they were good amongst their peers, they were sort of the standing joke among, as utilities tend to be and internet companies tend to be. And they got sick and tired, so they hired a senior VP of customer experience, and he said, I got a lot of work in front of me. I admit it. And he said, one of the slides was customer service happens when the experience is broken. And that just was a bit of a wake-up call and really changed my perspective. It's not always the case that people call in because they have some issue or something that's gone wrong, service recovery issue. But it is often the case. What do you think about that statement?
I love that statement, totally believe in it. There's the customer experience piece encompasses such a wider range, the whole customer journey. Whereas the customer service piece, some customers will never interact with customer service. And that's a good thing because it means nothing went wrong. But sometimes, though, that's exactly when it breaks down, people call it customer service. I think the other challenge there is, I know you mentioned the part about NPS. And the idea about who owns NPS. And one of the challenges there, of course, is that NPS is really hopefully the customer's entire lifetime and entire opinion, of what's happening. And really, I know one thing is the contact center should not own NPS because they can't directly dictate anything before or after an issue, just the interaction fixing the issue. And so I think that's a bit unfair.
Yeah, and just a point of definition, most of the listeners would be familiar with what NPS is, but for those who aren't, it's the number one, and has been for decades, the number one loyalty metric. And it essentially, if you've gotten a survey, or if you didn't recognize it before now, it's going to be like that car that somebody tells you about that you see now all the time on the road. It's how likely you're to recommend a friend or a colleague. And then there's a simple calculation, and it's become a standard way to measure not just your company, but in theory, if it's done correctly, against peers. So that's really what you're talking about, Mike.
Right, exactly. That's just it, exactly. And that's really the customer's overall experience or overall feeling of loyalty towards a company. And again, the customer service team can affect part of that, but it's not the be-all and end-all. There are a lot of other inputs that go into it. So it's really tough sometimes when, if you make your contact center own the NPS piece, because it's just a component of it.
We're starting here framing out the contact center and kind of its role as, in many ways, it's the hub or the pulse of the organization, as we shared. We're going to be talking about balancing agentic AI with human connection. Because let's face it, AI can not only save us on efficiency, it can help us with effectiveness, and it can be used to improve the customer experience, again, like if it's done correctly. But we're gonna dig into that. Before we do, since you've been multiple decades now into contact centers specifically, I really would love to get your opinion, just because I'm curious about how you would describe the evolution of the contact center in the years that you've been working with and for them.
Okay. We're going to go back to dinosaur days here now. But certainly evolution has been, when I first started working in contact centers in the early 90s, it was telephone based. It was always almost all voice communication with a little bit of snail mail, believe it or not, back then. And really the whole thing there was a lot of the interactions were fairly simple ones. How late does a certain store stay open? Where do I mail a check to? Very much what would now be called FAQ, or frequently asked questions type interactions, with only a small percentage being really highly emotional or highly complex issues. And so in terms of looking at this, it could be an entry-level job in the sense that somebody could come in, get a 3 to 6 week long new hire training program, and answer very basic FAQ type questions with a little bit of more advanced stuff. Certainly, of course, things change as far as how people communicated with companies through customer we got in the 2000s, a lot of email communication, for instance. Also, of course, now social media, which blossomed after the 2010s, and now really heavily social media, customer service as well. And so, of course, that had a huge impact. Also, integrated voice response, or IVR, press 1 for this, press 2 for that. Some pre-recordings in there, online web self-service. Obviously, of course, now in terms of, looking in terms of Agentic AI and chatbots and what that's done. And so a lot of it has been an evolution, an incredible, wonderful one in terms of technology. I mean, these are great tools. They offer what's referred to as omnichannel, which means a lot of different ways people can communicate with a company. And it really helps because different generations, we'll talk more about that, have different preferences for how they want to access information. But it does make it more complicated now for your contact center and for your company. Because it's not just going to be, a room with people answering a telephone anymore. It's going to be people with different skill sets, written and verbal. Different product queues for different product lineups that you have. Different tiers now. Frontline tier 1 or level 1 being the more basic questions. Tier 2 being escalations and more technical questions. So it complicates how you run a contact center. And it also complicates in many ways how you measure that customer success. And so that's been a huge transition.
There's so many things I want to unpack in what you just said. But first I want to start with some basic definitions, because you talked about chatbot and agentic AI. Could you help describe the difference between those for our listeners?
I'm not a technical person, so I'm going to go at this from a very basic level. Chatbots, of course, having been in existence before AI, and being very simple response machines, basically. Customers type in certain inquiries, certain keywords that are scanned, and they're given back very robotic answers. A chatbot at its simplest pre-AI level would have simply read keywords, whatever, silver package, monthly bill, dollar value, scanned that, looked it up in a database, and given a canned answer where the whole paragraph has already been pre-written, vetted by marketing, vetted by legal, and then put into a database, and the whole entire text, unaltered, gets plugged into that chatbot as a response back to the reader, whether or not it's really applicable or not. Agentic AI, of course, incorporates AI, where an AI will actually read the customer's email, not just those few keywords, but hopefully the entire context of what the person's writing, and then decide in terms of what is the person actually answering, and to formulate, based upon its database, its knowledge base, an answer back. But the answer back might be slightly different for each one of us. If I type my question as a customer in a very formal tone, it may respond back in a very formal tone with those details. If you write in a very casual tone and it reads that, it may give back an answer in a more casual tone, with contractions, with certain different kinds of phrases, etc., but give back essentially the same information, but in different tones and styles. So it ends up being more customized, not canned, and hopefully if it's really well done, will sound like a real human typing back the answer.
I want to connect. Thanks for sharing that. I think that's simple and useful differentiation between chatbot and agentic AI, and I know there's a lot more.
Yeah, there's more technical
that you could have shared, and that's still coming at us, right, as things develop. In the course I teach at Michigan State, it's customer relationship management, and this relates to what we're talking about here and what you shared about omnichannel. So omnichannel, you mentioned about the different channels that people can go through to communicate based on the whole concept is their choice as the consumer, that you're not forcing them into one channel typically, but you're giving them some options. So if I'm at home and it's midnight and I'm watching Netflix and I want to check my bank account balance, I can do it. If I'm driving by a branch and I need to apply for a loan, I can do that if I want. If I want to call the contact center for questionable charge on my account, I can do that as well. So these are the channels, and one of the former guests I had, and one of the recordings that I include from that podcast is Joe Pine who wrote The Experience Economy, and him and Lou Carbone are sort of credited with coming up with the whole concept of experience or customer experience management back decades ago. And Joe is now talking about the experience shifting from products or barter to products to factory production to services to moving up in escalation to an experience. And now he's talking about it in terms of transformational experiences. So how can the experience actually improve someone's life? And one of the things he talks about relates to what you just shared, which is the different modes that consumers are in. And so today, if I think he used the example of a coffee shop. If I'm at home, I might want to brew a cup and I might buy a bag or a Keurig container. If I'm at a coffee shop, I'm going to go to Starbucks or wherever and sit down and order a drink. If I'm at a restaurant, I would have it with my meal or dessert, and that might be, each one of these is at a very different price point. And the experience of my coffee is very different. So the modes, of how I prefer could change. It's not just, you can't just do a persona on the individual, right, Mike? It's even their mode could change.
Yeah, and that's definitely true too. And if you look at those different channels, those different modes that we refer to, voice, written, and even within written, is it on their phone? Is it on their laptop? It does change the experience. And also the customer's state of mind. Are they calling in for just a simple inquiry and they're okay with having a chatbot or an agentic AI answer? Are they really upset and want to talk to a human? Those are all factors that take place. The customer's emotional state and the communication or channel preference goes a long way towards setting their expectation. And again, customer experience is about the customer's experience and expectations that take place.
I want to talk about the stakes of the contact center in general, why it's such a big deal. It seems kind of obvious, but I know that if you're sitting in the C-suite, you're constantly looking at ways to reduce costs and create efficiency. And contact center people, after all, each one that's sitting in a chair is a full-time employee or full-time equivalent. What are the stakes? Why is this such a big deal to the organization? Why should the C-suite care so much about their contact center?
Well, there's two basic reasons why in terms of looking at, and you touched upon the idea about efficiency. So efficiency metrics in terms of, and this has been a big thing in our industry, the contact center industry, is looking at what's called average handle time. And that's a component basically of the amount of time that a person, a frontline agent, is actually talking to a customer or typing to a customer. And then any kind of call or work that takes place after the call interaction itself, which is maybe updating files afterwards or summarizing notes afterwards. And that combination is referred to as average handle time, the time it takes an agent to really help one customer. And that has a lot of impact in terms of efficiency and in terms of, I hate to say it, but cost. And you mentioned employee salary cost. Surprisingly for contact centers, real estate is a big cost, because it's not just the people that are in the contact center, but the actual square footage that they occupy, as well as the equipment that they use. And I know a lot of contact centers are remaining work from home or hybrid, with people when they're in their office actually hoteling or kind of working at different desks, not owning a desk, simply to reduce real estate costs. But all that goes into the idea about, unfortunately, the contact center as a cost center. And that is the way that some people in the C-suite look at the customer service or contact center team, as being a cost. If they do, though, and I'll give you one example. One company actually found that for every second they shaved off of every call per day that person took, times all the people in the contact center, they could save $40,000 a year for every 1 second difference. Now, that by itself is a measurement. It can be used for either a good thing or a bad thing, okay? Used for a bad thing, it could be telling your agents, and I've seen this happen, you need to shave 10 seconds off every call, okay? Or you need to hit a certain average length of time, 2 minutes per call max. And then we'll start pinging you through Teams saying, why are you taking so long? The problem with that, though, is it drives the wrong mindset. If you tell a frontline person, you got to make all your calls land within X amount of time, they'll find a way to do it. But it may be through things like rushing a customer off the phone, giving incomplete answers, making mistakes in terms of changes that they make, and those things drive additional calls. So you can save 10 seconds on a call by demanding it and really increase your call volume overall. Okay. So again, the obsessive focus on metrics can have a bad side. Now, there's also a good side. You can look at that same thing about 1 second equals $40,000 in that example and think, how can we make it better in a good way for the frontline team and for the customers? Okay. So it's the mindset you take into this for efficiency is what can you do to make things better and be more efficient in cost cutting? Cool.
Struggling to connect the dots across your customer journeys? You're not alone. For many CX professionals, journey mapping is still manual and fragmented, especially in large organizations. JourneyTrack changes that. Their platform unifies journey mapping, management, and measurement in one place, giving you a real-time view of every touch point. Uncover friction, align teams, and prove the ROI of your CX initiatives so you can make smarter decisions and deliver smoother journeys. Want to see how AI can help you map smarter, not harder? Download our free white paper at journeytrack.io/podcast or click the link at the end of the show notes to get started with AI-powered journey mapping in minutes. So, Mike, what do you think we talked about the stakes being high, right? And you're talking about real money, real dollars. We've got a team of full-time employees in the call center. Now, as you've shared, part of the evolution is they're working more from home than in a physical office because there's some real estate expenses associated with that. But what are some mistakes that leaders make when it comes to contact centers?
I think one of the biggest things, we talked about the sort of C-suite obsession on the cost side of things, and the contact center is a cost center. I think one of the challenges, both in the C-suite and through the leadership of contact centers, is not focusing on the benefit piece, which I think you kind of hinted at earlier, which is there's the efficiency metrics, but there are the effectiveness metrics. Okay, what's the impact to customer experience? And then you wind up with an example where if you give your agents more leeway to adapt to your customer, okay, so an example is moving from, say, hard scripting to being able to give more flexible answers based upon knowledge and being able to help customize with your customer, you can actually really greatly increase, and you mentioned sort of those wow experiences, that are out there, you can really increase customer loyalty, and take the time. It's not the contact center, but I saw a wonderful comparison, which was if medical doctors took just 30 seconds more per patient, they could actually avoid so many down the line malpractice lawsuits, people being unnecessarily ill, etc. Just that little extra time can really help an awful lot. So, and again, I know there's a cost associated with that, but you have to look and think, is driving people to shave 1 second off a call worth getting really bad NPS and CSAT scores and having a high churn or customer turnover rate, that's there. And I think one of the drawbacks that I do see is that contact center leaders, because we're so immersed in metrics. Mark, if I shared with you all the metrics that team leaders and directors and VPs look at, you'd be stunned by all these metrics and so many things that all these modern platforms can spit out as metrics. But the challenge with that is if you're training as a VP of a contact center, your C-suite to ask about abandon rate, speed of answer, average handle time per second, how many seconds, etc., you're training them to respond to efficiency metrics. And the conversation should really shift to those effectiveness metrics. Let's talk now about CSAT. Let's talk about NPS, okay? We'll talk about churn rate, but don't say we managed to go and save 3% of people calling in, okay? What you want to do instead is reframe that to be how much rescued revenue do you have, okay? It's not a 3% effective retention rate. It's we prevented $12 million from walking out the door. That's the rescued revenue, lifetime value for the people we saved and retained this month, okay? That dollar value, $12 million in rescued revenue this month, that's going to get the C-suite's attention a lot more than saying we had a half a point increase in retention rate.
Most CX leaders are working hand in hand with the contact center leader. I know I did. One of the things that was critical was, number one, they did a great job. I mean, most of the people who are taking that job are interested in serving people.
Yes.
By nature, they're people who want to be there to help. They just need to be empowered and equipped and trained, right? And so when we get into things like average call time or total talk time, and you're looking really about incenting them for how quickly they can get customers off the phone.
I'm not recommending that. I'm actually opposed to that.
I know you're not. I'm just saying those metrics tend to be about efficiency, as you were just talking about before. And no matter what you say to them, if you're grading them on efficiency, there's going to be a huge, tell me if I'm wrong, there's going to be a huge miss when it comes to, making an emotional connection. We're going back to balancing agentic AI with human connection.
Exactly. And that's just it, because, it's interesting when I consult, when I walk into contact centers, you can usually tell pretty quickly if they're focused on metrics and efficiency or if they're focused on effectiveness and delighting customers. And you can just tell in terms of how they talk about their metrics. I'll ask you to go and take a look at the quality assurance or quality monitoring forms. Okay. Some of them are very heavily skewed towards certain procedural and effectiveness metrics, definitely in terms of their agents, their frontline agents' monthly or quarterly evaluations. Again, what weight do they place on things like average handle time versus CSAT? And also lost in this too are bigger picture metrics in terms of what is your average frontline turnover rate. And it's interesting in contact centers because it's not unusual to find just in-house to have a 30 to even 50% annual turnover rate. And if they're actually working at a third-party contact center, so an outsourced one, it's not unusual to see over 100% annual turnover rate. And in almost any other department, if I looked at a sales team, an IT team, an engineering team, an HR team, and they had a 30 to 50% annual employee turnover rate, I'd be concerned, really concerned about that. And in the contact center, we look at that as being normal. And some of that can be internal. They move up in the company or go elsewhere, which is really good for them. Move on to sales, marketing. That's a good thing. But a lot of it is out the door. And that's a real sign there that they don't feel empowered. They can't help people. Because like you said, usually people apply for those jobs because they like helping people. And then unfortunately, sometimes in an efficiency house, they're given all kinds of metrics and punishment for going the extra mile for people and not empowered to. And that's a bad one. On a good one, though, they are given leeway. They're given parameters for how much they could credit back, for how creative they can be in solutions, for what they can say to be able to help help their customers have a really great experience.
Yeah, I remember Tony Hsieh from Zappos talking about creating a wow moment in each interaction with the customer. How can you wow them, and not sticking to rote rules and regulations when it came to serving the customer, but empowering employees.
Yeah, exactly. And what's really great about that is the focus was make the customer happy as opposed to following all the rules. Now, I do realize, I know he was selling shoes, right? It was an online shoe store. And I know that things like banks, for instance, insurance companies have very strict regulatory reasons why they have to read things verbatim, for instance, things like that. But still, the whole intention, though, is the intention a balance of efficiency and effectiveness? Or is it going to be about just the kind of cost-cutting piece that's there? One thing I like about Zappos was the fact that, of course, they had the legendary 10-hour-long call, where a customer called in and the frontline agent actually spent 10 hours trying to help them resolve their issue and was not punished for it, okay? And was actually seen as a legendary story going above and beyond to help people. So again, it's just really empowering your staff and letting them know that they can be a hero. They can help people. They can do it. And that's what the really great centers look at, contact centers look at, is being able to go and help empower their people, train and empower their people to really give that great customer service. So there's a whole continuum of mindset from efficiency, effectiveness, cost, etc., to delight that's out there.
Yeah, and I do want to add, and let me know what you think of, from my experience, a myth or mistake that leaders make when it comes to call centers is they can be efficient as possible and keep basically a skeleton crew. And I think that's a really dangerous mistake. It's really easy to see. Nobody's their time on the phones are down because nobody's calling in right now, and we know that there are peak times. But I can tell you, having gone through a couple of acquisitions where we've acquired other banks, and that conversion process is very, first of all, the people coming over from the other bank didn't choose us, right? We're forcing them to go start a relationship with a brand new bank, people they didn't know, they didn't choose. Systems are different. Things look different, and they're calling in because they can't access their account or something. To them, the world is ending, and you now have not ramped up your customer or contact center enough to anticipate that. So you're talking about a potential, how hard it is to get a customer, potential very quick churn of customers coming in. That's just one example. Right,
exactly. But it's such a great example, though, because, again, you've got a customer from the previous bank that got bought out or merged that has a high emotional state because they can't access their money. And they don't know what's going on with this brand new company that took over their provider. And so there's a lot of emotion there. And that's one of the things that's really crucial, is the fact that when it comes to customer service and contact centers, yes, you're giving factual answers. Yes, you're trying to go and fix an issue. But one of the things I always say in my courses is you're trying to go and you have to fix the relationship first before you fix the problem. You have to fix the relationship first in terms of the emotional management, the emotional intelligence, the empathy that's there before you fix the problem. And I think that's going to become even more pronounced now with AI, with agentic AI, because as it becomes more capable and takes on more of the so-called basic questions, and even some of the more advanced ones for that matter, the people that are left are going to come through to a live person and have more complex issues and more emotionally charged issues. And so the emotional intelligence that they have to display and the empathy that they have to display becomes even more crucial as a skill. And so it really is balancing that efficiency and effectiveness, empathy, knowledge, all those skills to really give that great customer service.
So, Mike, how do you see agentic AI being incorporated successfully into the contact center?
Well, I think one of the things is that it's a really great tool, and it's amazing how fast it's advancing. And so I think it can really help a lot of customers that try to contact and get information. And as well, too, it's also proving to be a really great agent assist tool. Because now, instead of having an agent having to go and after a call or interaction, having to go and manually type in what they remember of the details of the call, AI can automatically just sum it all up and put a really great entry into the customer's file for you. So it saves time for that agent, makes it easier, in terms of doing that. It can be a great agent assist tool to listen to, so the AI would actually hear the call, for instance, and then give pop-up screens to go and suggest, try doing this, or here's what it is in the knowledge base. So it can really be a wonderful tool to assist agents to become even more effective and help them tremendously, and help their coaches as well by analyzing speech analytics or using speech analytics to go and analyze a call or analyze an interaction. They can provide the coaches and team leaders and managers a lot of information to be able to help coach their frontline agents to get even better at their role and do it in a way that gives them a lot of data, not just one call that gets listened to.
I think really what we're talking about is adding more value.
Exactly.
Adding more value to the customer. And one of the things that comes to mind is, so NBO has been around for a while. This is software that communicates to the agent what the next best offer would be to the customer. And I would say, from my own personal experience, it's moderately accurate, moderately successful. For me personally, less accurate than more accurate. And so I'm being offered a home equity line, and I have no interest, or I already have one, or that's an example. Do you want a car loan? My cars are paid off. So it's a miss. And my hope is that with agentic AI, the ability to know me better, pull information from our database, from external information, we call it in the CRM world, customer related data that might be related to me that's outside of our database. The idea there is, and tell me what you think, is that AI may be able to help agents bring more value. Also, we were talking earlier about why should the C-suite care, is because there are upsell, cross-sell. There's opportunities to offer, not just in a salesy way, but in a better way. What's been your experience?
I totally agree with that as well. Again, I train customer service and sales skills. And the sales skills I train are upselling and cross-selling, typically within an inside sales team or contact center. And one of the challenges before AI was the fact that if you asked an agent to go and sell, they would typically have to start cold without any prior knowledge of the customer. The call drops in your headset or pops in your screen from a chat window, and you're starting off cold. You're actually beginning now the conversation, and you don't know anything about the customer. And then manually as an agent, you would look up their information to find out more about them. So if you called your bank, that person would then look up your file, look up your information that's in there, and then try to figure out on the spot, what should I offer this person? Me, one individual, talking to one individual, no head start, no big database, just, I don't know, what am I supposed to go on and ask or suggest to this person? And while some people got really good at it, just based on experience or a kind of a knack for it, a lot of people didn't. And so they hesitated in terms of what to offer, and they might offer you a home equity line of credit or a car loan, get shot down immediately, get discouraged, and not even try for the rest of the day, which I don't blame them for, because no one likes being rejected. They would do the set pitch every day. Their team lead might say, today, everybody, offer a home equity line of credit. Just do it. And they'd all do that. And then as a customer, you're going, why do they keep asking me that every time I call in?
Yeah.
That's before AI. Now, AI, though, you're right, with a big enough data set and being able to go and analyze enough, it can hopefully give an accurate enough suggestion to go and say, no, suggest to Mark this particular product because he and people like him typically, need this kind of help. All right. And then the agent frames it to be a help to you. And if it's accurate enough, hopefully you'll go, wow, I never thought of that. I could use that. Tell me some more about it. Okay. So it adds value to your interaction as a customer and makes the job easier for an agent.
Mike, I want to we have to land the plane. Speaking of planes,
Okay.
I'd like to talk to you forever here on this topic, but where is it going? Where are we going to be in 3, 4, 5 years from now when it comes to agentic AI and the contact center?
I think a lot of it, with the way AI is progressing and learning so rapidly, it will take on a much greater percentage of customer interactions. And also, as well as an agent assist tool, as those get better and better, you'll see more of that helping the frontline agents as well. I will say, though, that predictions that you won't need human beings involved in customer service anymore is too rosy. Okay. And in past waves of technology, we've heard those same predictions as well. And the reason why I say that is because I think you'll always have some customers based upon either demographics, complexity of problem, or their emotional state that will want to talk to a human being. And if your company has a wide range of customer age ranges, demographics, etc., you want to offer different ways for your customers to contact you.
I think that's an important point that you made there, is that one of the key differentiators of where it's going is that the quality or the complexity of the calls that you'll be handling are going to be higher level and may require higher emotional skill sets.
Yes.
And boy, when that happens, the stakes are higher because something emotional is going on, and often it's not good. And you stand between customers staying and potentially becoming more loyal because they had a great experience when they had a tough situation, or just the opposite. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that because, if someone's again, 10 years ago, if someone called in to say, how late is your Albuquerque store open tonight? Okay. That was hopefully not a high stakes emotional issue.
Right.
And now, obviously, AIs can handle all of that and a lot more. But if someone's calling in, having dealt with the FAQ on your website, having done maybe a chat with a chatbot, gone through a voice response system with an agentic AI, even talked to a human for that matter, and they're still really angry, even more angry because they've gone through 4 or 5 efforts and levels now, they're going to just blast the person who answers the phone, and it's going to be a really emotionally difficult and tough call to go and deal with, even if the issue itself is not complex. And so you're right, though, for the people that are in a contact center now, they're going to have to deal with much greater issues.
Yeah, great point. And oftentimes they are the face of the brand, and they are the single point of contact when it comes to, and potentially the point of failure or point of success, depending on how that conversation goes. Well, it's been a great conversation. Thanks for shedding so much light. Mike, I want to end the show asking you the same question that I ask all my guests, which is, what delights you as a customer?
I think for me, and maybe I'm kind of an old guy, but actually getting somebody, getting a person and having that person actually not just answer questions, but have some energy to them and some life to them, which I know is very demanding. And having been in this business for so many years, I want to celebrate anybody who answers a phone or helps me that actually seems to give a darn and has some life and energy. And I've actually said, thank you so much for helping that, and if anybody's listening or evaluating this, they did a great job because I know their call is probably being monitored. So I think that would be customer delight for me, having been in this business, is just to celebrate people that actually do a great job, because it's hard.
Yeah, it's a great point. In the show, we talk about how to delight customers, and we talk about strategies that leaders can use to do that and to grow their business as a result and hit the financial outcomes they're looking for. We don't talk a lot about, if you're the customer, how should you behave? And I think it's worth mentioning that there are times when you recognize you're empathetic toward the role that someone in the contact center has, hopefully by virtue of you just listened to this episode, and you can give thanks.
Yeah, exactly. Or at least remember the fact that the person you're dealing with in the contact center didn't cause your problem, odds are, okay, and really does want to try to help you with that. So please have that in mind. And they're a human, and they're a person. Please have that in mind as well.
Excellent. Mike, thanks so much for being a guest on the show. So many great insights. The contact center is, in many ways, the pulse of the organization, and thanks for the work that you do. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you to reach out and talk some more, what would be the best way?
Reach out to me on LinkedIn. So Mike Aoki, the name spelled in no for the podcast, just put that in and just reach out to me on LinkedIn. And I'd love to connect with you.
Perfect. Mike, thanks so much for being a guest on the show.
Okay, thank you, Mark, for having me. Appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Delighted Customers Podcast. It would mean so much if you would take a moment to subscribe. You can go to Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you listen to podcasts, click on the plus sign or follow button, and that will ensure that you don't miss an episode, and it helps get the word out to others. While you're there, I'd love it if you'd leave a 5-star review. I look forward to seeing you back here next Thursday.